Number 5. At the ages of 3 and 5, young girls Pepper and Renee Smith were kidnapped from their home while a family friend was babysitting them one evening. This kidnapping led the girls down a dark, 40-year path of misfortune, with them eventually living in numerous motel rooms, witnessing and experiencing sexual abuse, prostitution, and even murder. The story began in 1973, when the girls' mother managed to rent an apartment near Hollywood. She'd employed a babysitter to watch over her young girls while she was in the hospital due to complications with the pregnancy of their brother. According to the mother, Jerry Coleman, when she was finally discharged, she returned home to find the girls and the babysitter gone, as if they had simply vanished. It was later found out that the babysitter had apparently taken the girls. The reasons behind this are unknown though, and it's assumed that the babysitter likely had ties to human trafficking rings in the area. The girls remained connected to the babysitter for the next 12 years, with the babysitter eventually transporting them from California all the way across the country to Florida, living in roach-infested motels during their transport. When asked about the motels they stayed in, Pepper recalled they were horrible. I just remember roaches. I would dream that they were climbing on me. You didn't want to touch the walls or even walk barefoot, but staying in these motels were the fortunate nights. Sometimes we would sleep in outdoor restrooms or just the car. When asked about her time with her abductor, Pepper said, "There were a lot of men beating women, child abuse, disgusting language. We saw murders, and one time a man attacked a woman with a machete. Another time a man died of an overdose in a next-door room and was found in the bathtub. That was pretty common at motels, strange men. It happened from a very young age. I knew it was bad and knew it was wrong, and I ran away as much as I could. We were put in terrible situations and places. I didn't know that there were good people in the world for a long time." When the girls were in their teens, the babysitter who had kidnapped them fell ill. Regardless of everything they'd been put through, the girls nursed their kidnapper from the time that she became sick until she ultimately passed away. After this, the girls began to live lives on their own, taking on jobs at fast food restaurants. Though through all of this, Pepper never gave up hope in finding her biological mother. For over 40 years, she searched for her family, and that search seemingly came to an end in 2009, when Pepper and Renee were finally reunited with their mother and other extended family. The breakthrough came after the girls had unsuccessfully been able to find documentations of themselves on public record. Because of this, a church friend offered to adopt the girls, so that they could receive their own official identities and appropriate documentation. However, during this process, a government official came across one of the girls' birth certificates belonging to Pepper. It was found out at this point that Pepper's real name was actually Rhonda Patricia Christie, with her parents supposedly being Robert and Barbara Christie. At this point, Pepper, or Rhonda, tracked down her mother, who lived in Sandusky, Ohio, though it was quickly found out that Barbara Christie was not her real mother. Pepper recalled the event, claiming that there were far too many lies and information that simply didn't add up when she asked her mother about what had happened to them. The girls never met their real mother until 2011, when a Dateline NBC special was written about them. It was at this point that the girls' real biological mother came forward and claimed the girls. The woman, named Jerry Coleman, then informed the girls of the true story of how they were kidnapped some 40 years ago by a rogue babysitter. The girls have now been reunited with their extended family as well, and have begun to live, all things considered, a normal life. Number 4. On June 22nd, 1991, a man by the name of Charles Holden was leaving a fast food restaurant just before midnight when he was approached by a man who requested that Charles drive him to the hospital, claiming that his wife was in labor. Charles initially told the man that he couldn't, as he only lived a couple blocks away, though he eventually settled with the man and offered to drive him about 3 miles down the road. When the stop came, the man began to argue with Charles, insisting he continue to drive him to the hospital. Charles refused, and the man became violent, revealing a screwdriver that he claimed he would stab Charles with if he didn't drive him. At this point, Charles fled the vehicle and attempted to run to a local gas station for help, though the man chased after him. Unable to escape, Charles agreed that he would drive the man to the hospital. The two men then returned to the vehicle, but before the man could get in, Charles slammed the door and sped away, leaving the man behind. At this point, Charles began to drive a short distance down the road, trying to clear his head before returning home. However, when he finally approached his home, he noticed that the man was lurking around the house. He then found a payphone and phoned police. Police arrived at the home and searched the area as well as the farmhouse out back where Charles's mother, Dorothy Donovan, lived. It was here that they found Dorothy's back door had been broken in. There was also blood throughout the house. They went upstairs and found Dorothy dead, seeming to have been stabbed to death. Nothing was found to have been stolen from the home, and police initially thought that Charles had made the story up, as it was simply so bizarre. However, physical evidence later cleared him of any involvement, and proved that the unknown man who attempted to attack Charles earlier that evening was likely the killer. Police searched for this man for 17 years, when they finally made a breakthrough in February of 2016. A bloody palm print left at the scene of Dorothy's death revealed that her killer was a man by the name of Gilbert Cannon, who'd previously served time in 1997 for a similar murder. At his hearing, he pled guilty to the murder of Dorothy, claiming that he was simply looking for a place to stay for the evening, and her house was the only one without any lights on. When he went inside to find the house occupied, he killed her. Gilbert was then sentenced to life in prison. Number 3. About 2 years ago, a user took to Reddit seeking legal advice for a possible home invasion which he had no evidence for, aside from a series of sticky notes. In the post, the user states how every night when he goes to sleep, he'll wake up the following morning to find odd sticky notes placed throughout his room. These were typically simple notes, such as a reminder to save the documents on his computer. However, one morning, the user awoke to a note that read, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you, but it's important that we do." The user then compared the handwriting of this letter to the handwriting of his landlord from a note which he'd received from him previously. The writing was almost identical. This thread continued on for a few days before one user strangely began to ask the poster if he'd been experiencing any headaches. The user stated that he had. The commenter then suggested that the user check the CO levels in his apartment, as what he's describing seems to fit the bill of a series of hallucinations or sleepwalking bouts that often take place in homes with high CO levels, a chemical that in large amounts can be deadly. The poster then invested in a CO meter and found that his apartment housed lethal levels of the chemical. So this random commenter not only saved this poster's sanity, but likely his life. Number 2. In November of 1970, 16-year-old Jimmy Williams picked up a group of his friends for a night out, cruising in his brand new Chevrolet Camaro. The group were seen throughout the evening driving down Route 66 and bowling at a local bowling alley. However, later on into the night, the group of friends as well as the car simply vanished. The teens all remained missing for over 43 years, until 2013 when a group of policemen randomly found a Camaro in the bottom of a small lake. Authorities removed the vehicle from the waters and found 3 teenagers inside. The car had been submerged all this time in just 12 feet of water, about 50 feet from the end of a boat ramp. The bodies that were found inside were confirmed to have been the teens who disappeared that evening in 1970. It's believed that the teens were likely goofing off in Jimmy's new car and accidentally crashed into the lake, becoming trapped inside the vehicle and ultimately drowning. While this certainly wasn't the news that the children's parents were hoping for, maybe in some way they'll be able to find peace, finally knowing exactly what happened to their children some 43 years ago. Number 1. In October of 1996, Park Ranger David Brenner was scoping out his local area in a military helicopter, searching for any illegal drug manufacturing laboratories in the Death Valley area, as was his regular routine. However, during his flight, Brenner noticed something odd, a minivan which had been parked in Anvil Canyon, about 2.4 miles away from any legal strip of road. This was exceptionally odd because, as mentioned, there was no legal road down here. Additionally, while the area could have been fairly easily maneuvered by any four-wheel drive vehicle, a minivan was by all means inappropriate for maneuvering this type of terrain. After Brenner landed, he approached the vehicle and performed a search. He noticed that the van had been caked in an exceptionally thick layer of sand, appearing as though it had been stranded there for a very long time, likely months or even years. He then noted that the van's wheels had been caked in thick, hardened sand, with its 2 rear wheels completely flattened. The ranger then noted the van's license plate numbers and requested information from the DMV. The report then showed that the van had been rented back in July of that same year by a group of German tourists, though it was never returned. Investigators later found German-language tourist manuals inside of the van, further confirming this. The names of the renters were later revealed to have been a family of 4. The family had rented the van with plans of returning the van on July 26th, then returning to Germany on July 27th. Though the van was never returned, and records indicate the family never boarded their plane home. The only piece of evidence left behind from the family was a single sleeping bag that had been placed approximately 18 miles from the location of the van. Finally, some 16 years later, the entire family's skeletal remains were found, It's believed that following becoming stuck in the mud, the family had wandered off, attempting to find a main road. Though due to the extreme heat in excess of 100 degrees, they succumbed to heat exhaustion and passed away. After all this time in searching, their bodies are found to have been located just a couple miles away from where they'd become stranded. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.